So, in previous classes, let me what are the topics we learned till this day? Okay, we learned these topics: why and what, why React, installation, folder structure, JX components, keys, props, state, condition rendering, control and control components, and how to communicate between the components from parent to child to parent, and also explain the props link concept. Till yesterday, till previous class, explain the props link concept. So what is the prop link? So for example, if you want to paste, for example, we have components like this. So child one, child two, child three, parent example. If you want to pass the data from app component to child tree, we need to use the props. If you use the props link concept, first we need to send from the app to parent, parent to child one to child two, child to child three. This is the way how we are passing the data from top level to bottom level. Now, instead of the passing data from one component to the other, one component to the other, how can we pass directly from the app component to child component? Child tree component. For example, I want to pass the data from directly from app component to child tree component. How we pass? So how I pass from that data directly from the app component to child tree. Instead of fill the props, we just take the tape. This is another correct way to pass the from the app to parent to child one, child two, child to child three. This prop concept is not correct. If you want to, if you So if you want to pass data directly from app to child, what is the way? The way is we use context. So if you want to pass the data from the app to child tree, or if you want to do data, if you want to share the data between the multiple components, use the concept called the use context. Okay. So using use context, we can share the data between any two components. Not only app to child, we can share the between any sibling components or parent child components. So in the use context, what we will do is we maintain the data in a context level. We create some context for particular values. We know, for example, I want to share the data from country name from the app to child tree. So what I will do, I will first create a context. I link this context to the app component because app is root component of the application. So first I need to create a context file. I need to connect the context file to the app component. Then if you want to pass the data from app component to child tree, first what will take the value from the app component to the context. Then from this context, you can take the value to the child tree. This is the theory part. Let's go to coding how we create the context like that. So first of all, we need to, for example, I have a component, app component, parent component, child one, child two, child three. So now I pass the data from directly from the app component to child tree component. For example, in the app component, I have a I have a country value. I have a country value DM. I want to pass this country value directly to the child tree component. How? So for that, first I will create a separate file. Like I create a separate file. I create a separate file with the name like I create a separate file like. Uh, let me create a separate file for that one. Let me create the separate file in the SSD folder with the name like so. I'm sharing I'm naming the context value as country context. Okay, country context.js. Okay, I create the one country context. Now I create the create like country context. I create a context with the name country context. To create the context, we use the library use context. You use the hook use context hook. So use context hook is used for to create a particular context. For example, if you want to create this particular context, It's like a box. If you want to create this particular context, then I will create using the use context to I create the one context. Okay. Let's make it as default. Let's make it the export. I mean, if you want, so you want to use this, you will create this box, this context. Now you want to use this context wherever you want. That means you need to export. Then only you need to import anywhere you want. So first you need to export, then you can use this anywhere you want. So export this one, like export default. So using this name, we can import this one. Okay. So I create this context. Now link this context with the app. How I link the context? Like first you need to import this context into the app component. Okay. So let's import. So import country context from this file. I imported. Now I need to link this context to my app component. That's why I use like country context dot provider. Okay. Like this, you need to link up your context with the app component. So with so first you need to import that context, and you need to use that context. You need to like using the context that provider. That means so you create this context and link with the app component. Like how like this. So first I create the context file separately, which is use context. Now I imported context in the app component. Now using the context dot provider, I link it with the app component. Now pass the value. If you want to pass the so what will you create the context and link up with the app. Now you need to pass the value from the app component to this context. Okay. So you want to pass the value from the app component to this context. That means you need to, for example, I have a value country name in the app context. You need to pass this country name to this context. So for that one, I use like, so you have a value country in the app component. Now you need to pass this country value, this context. Is $10. So that means you need to pass the country value from the app component to this context. Then this context hold the value country name. So after that, we can get that country name value from the context anywhere you want. So first you need to pass the value this country to this provider, this context. For that one, value is equal to country. Okay, so now I got this country value, this context. That means from app, first I create the context. I import in the app component, I link it with the app component. Next, I take the value app component to context. So now context has the value country value. Now you want to use this country value directly in the change tree. That means what you will do is you need to take the value from this context to the change tree. So what you do here also you need to import the context. Import what is the context name country context. Import it now from this context, use this context. Okay, let's use this context. Using the use context method, you can use this context. Okay, here I told two methods. One is the create context. Okay, create context use sorry, one is a create context. This create context. Sorry, one is the create context. So using the create context method, create context hook, I create the one context. Sorry, using the create context, I created the one context. Okay, and I exported this context. Now I import this context into the app component. Okay. So now I link this context to the app component using the provider. Now I pass a value from the app to this context. Okay. Now I use this context in the child tree. I imported and used. That means I got the value directly from this to this value, this country. Now check country. So let's observe what is the how it is there. I got it. From app component to I got the country name as India. From app component to child tree component directly. This is the way how I use the context to share the data between the components. I will explain the first. I create the context with a name country context. I create a context. I create a separate file. I create the file. In that file, using the hook create context hook, I created one empty context. That means I created one empty box. Okay, I created one empty box. Now I link this empty box, this empty context to this app. So what I will do is I imported that first I imported the country context and I linked it this way. So for the app, for total application, if you want to use this context, you need to pass this provider to this app component view. That means you need to link up with this context to the app component. That's why I pass the country context that provider. Okay. Now so here I create the box, I link here. Now I'm taking the value from app component to this context. What I did, I pass the value country to this as a value. Okay. Now this country context hold the value country name. Now I want to use this country name into child tree directly. What I did is I go to the child tree, I imported this create context, this country context, and using the use context hook, I use this concept. Then automatically I will get this value. I will get directly this value. I got this value as country, right? So I know directly use this value. This way, I pass the data from app component to child tree component. For example, somebody asked, I have a country select box. Still no, everyone is clear, right? Any doubts still no? Everyone is clear, right? People understand context concept. So using the use context, we can communicate, we can pass the data from one component to other component. Okay. So somebody give a task. For example, I have a drop down, country drop down in the app component. If I select the value, the dot drop down, the country name automatically displayed here. Resting. So let's, for example, the app component. Okay, in the app component, I created the select box, right? Okay. So I have a drop down in the app component. My requirement, if I choose any country name in the app component, I need to display this country name into child name directly, child component. I already passed this country value, this state value. Now what I need to do, if I change this select the box, that value you need to pass to this, you need to set the state. Automatically, this value change here in the context. Automatically, this value change. Let's see. So for this drop down, I'm calling the class on chain. Okay. I pass the event. Okay. From this event, for set country, so whatever I select come to event. This event I need to pass to this value. So I need to pass the value. So event the target the value. So that means when I'm changing the value, it comes to event. From this event, I pass the value to setting the state. Automatically this country value will change. Automatically this change, the context value change. If this change, wherever I use this context, there also it will change. Let's see. Let's see. It's changing, right? Changing or not? This is the way how we can communicate between the component, between the one component and the other component. Instead of the using the prop, instead of using the props delay, this is the way how we communicate between the components, one component to other component. So using the use context, we can create. I will explain the what are the steps for the use context. First, for you, let me explain the first we need to do. So first we need to create a separate context file. Import that context file. You can and create context. Create separate file and create context using hook create context. Right? So you need to use the create context. So first I create the separate file. I create the you create context. Right? Next, import the context into the app component and link with provider. Import and link with the provider. That means you need to import first and you need to link like this. Next, you need the pass value to context. Next, you need the pass value to pass value where to the context provider. Next, wherever you want, you can take from the context using use context row. Okay, these are the steps. So you are people clear how you communicate between the data between the two data to components, how you pass the data from one component to other component. This is the way. If you want to share the data between the two sibling components, if you want to share the data between any different components, this is the way. Using the use context, we can communicate. So this is the one. This is the one task I explained, right? This is the one. When the app component has the content drop down, if we change the here, automatically wherever it change here. Okay. So you people understand, right? Everyone clear, right? That's it from there.